And it was at this point where I said, David, you've lost your fucking mind.
I tell you, Sneaky Cat is smash. Sneaky Cat is smash.
Oh man, this is really happening. All right, so another night sweating in here on the Hellcat. So let's kind of talk about what's going on. Before I get into that, if you don't know, I started with imports in high school. My buddy Alonzo, I remember he had just moved to our high school. He just transferred from Highlands Ranch. If you don't know where that is, it's in Colorado. But anyways, he transferred from Highlands Ranch to my high school. I went to Elizabeth High School. And I remember I just had a truck at the time. It was lifted, like had stereo system and all that good stuff, tent, whatever. And, obviously I was always into cars, but I started out with a truck because that was my first vehicle that I acquired for turning 16 to drive to school. So that's what I started out with. And I'll never forget, obviously I traded the truck, went to a Jeep, and that's kind of how the whole Jeep thing started. But I'll never forget the first time I met Alonzo, and he brought over his 92 Civic hatchback. It was a GSR, so it was a B18 motor out of an Acura Integra with a small turbo on it. I don't even know what it was now. I mean, maybe it was like a 60 trim or something. It was really small. It was a small Turbonetics turbo. It was probably leaking out of the seals like a Civ. Probably only made like maybe 400 horsepower. But you got to remember, these cars were so light. I mean, you're talking a Civic hatchback, which was already light, plus the fact that had manual windows, manual locks, just a basic stereo. I mean, no sound deadening, nothing. Front bumper supports taken out, like just bare bones car on the street that would gap a lot of muscle cars at the time. And I'll just never forget that first ride. Kevin and I, we went in it together, actually met him the same day. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind. Like, I was like, why is this car spinning the tires and smoking them through third gear? Like, we're in a freaking Honda Civic. And that kind of just started the craze. And if you guys don't know, that's how I started, was with imports. Our dad was into muscle cars growing up. And I don't know how, but Kevin and I got started on the import thing. And just always loved imports. The Fast and Furious had come out in 2001. Obviously, I was in high school. I graduated high school in 2009, so it was years after. But still, there was just that craze around the import scene at the time. And obviously, we weren't into the graphics and the underglow and all that stuff. Well, Kevin kind of was, but I wasn't. After I rode in that Civic, I had to have one. And so I'll make a separate video off all the cars that I've owned. But anyways, just want to state that I started with imports, and that's what got me into this whole craze. And what I was thinking about the other day when I was, switching the seats in the Hellcat and trying to figure out ways to lose weight. And I was kind of shooting ideas back and forth between some friends. And, with the Hellcat and the Evo, I never had front bumper supports. Even in my WRX, never had front bumper supports, never had rear bumper supports, never worried about that stuff. The airbag lights were always on. The airbags probably wouldn't even deploy if the car got in an accident. They were still street cars. They had full interior. My Civic didn't have AC, didn't have power steering, it didn't have none of that. It was bare bones, but it was still full interior on the inside. Still door panels, seats, full dash, steering wheel, carpet, everything. And same thing with my Evo. It was super clean on the inside. That one still had power steering, but the AC didn't work. But the AC was still in there. It never worked, so it was never filled up. But I didn't have bumper supports, any of that stuff. I never worried about that. Yeah, it's a safety thing, but those things never crossed my mind. Like, I was just building the car at the time. So that takes us to today's video, where I have removed the front bumper support on my 2016 Dodge Challenger Hellcat. As you guys know, I don't daily drive this car, so I'm looking for ways to make this car as light as possible. Right now it looks gutted, but it goes back to the same thing. Like, I'm taking the bumper support off, but a lot of people do that on cars that they're racing at the track. Like I said, I had them off of my Evo and I was daily driving that thing. I had it off my Civic and I was daily driving that thing. those things just never worried me because all I cared about was going fast at the time. And I don't even drive this car every day. Now, you know, I could drive it on the street, and I do drive it on the street. Sometimes I'll drive it to work. But for the most part, it spends most of its time, sad to say this, driving to the track and driving to the car show. Now, there's many reasons for that. You know, I don't have street tires, so I don't want to wear these tires down. It's not the safest to drive on skinnies. However, it drives around town just fine if you're wondering. But I don't have a set of street tires. It's on the 85. And honestly, I like it being in the garage. I like it with low miles. I like driving it to the track. I like racing it. I like driving it to work on Fridays. I like driving it to work on Wednesdays, Mondays, whatever. Whenever I want to drive it, I can drive this thing. It's totally streetable, and that's what I love about it. Even with the interior and the mods I've done, it is super streetable. It's got full AC. The navigation still works. The stereo still works. Awesome. The car doesn't overheat. The car doesn't shake, shimmy. It's a little loud with the open header exhaust. But other than that, the car is totally streetable and drivable on the road. And it's totally safe to drive on the road. So that's not why I don't drive it. You know, it's kind of a pain in the ass to get out of the garage and get out of the shop and those types of things. But I like being able to just jump in my truck and go, especially because I work very early in the morning. And I don't want to be starting this thing and pissing off the neighbors. So this car is totally streetable. So don't get the wrong idea about this car. This car is just as streetable as that car, as the Charger in the front garage, as the Trackhawk in the front garage. It's just as streetable. However, I just choose not to drive it. And yeah, I like driving it when I want to drive it. I like keeping the miles low, and I like modding the shit out of it. So that takes us to today's video finally, of taking off this front bumper support, which there is a total of 8 bolts on each side connecting it to the frame rails. And there is 2 spot welds for this little bracket you just got to break off. If you're wondering, don't have to do it. But if you're wondering how to take it off, that's how you take it off. There's also these extra brackets that are on top that kind of stick out. I don't know. I'm going to weigh those here in just a second, and we'll update you there. But this guy by itself is 22 pounds, plus the one on the rear, which will most likely be coming off, is another 22 pounds. Now, Speed Logics does make an aluminum version for $250 that weighs 2 pounds. But here's my thinking. It's $250, which is not very much. But it is a thin piece of aluminum. So is it really going to do anything? No, it's still for off-road use only. The only thing it does is it's going to hold this bracket, which holds your heat exchanger up. And on the other side, you've got your oil cooler, so it's going to hold that up. So I have seen someone named Stephen Ripa who took some aluminum bars, just like this, from Home Depot. And shout out to Ripa. I stole this idea from him, and he doesn't even know yet. But essentially, what you do is you're going to drill holes for the OEM bolts to fit through. And you just make 2 little bars on each side. And you don't need it to go all the way across the middle, but you're pretty much just making them on the corner here to hold the bracket. So that's what we're gonna do. I don't know if I'm gonna finish it tonight, but the plan is to kind of map out exactly where those are gonna go. Hopefully cut them and see if they're the right size. And if they're not, then I'll just go to Home Depot tomorrow and get the right size. But that's what we're doing today. All right, so I've got my first little aluminum bracket here made. So I've got the first hole already used, drilled out, good to go. Utilizing the factory bolt, which works perfect because then it goes in the factory mounting position for this black bracket that's holding the heat exchanger. And then I've got the holes marked where those need to go. So that'll go like that. And then we'll make a second one for the top, and then we'll have to make 2 more for the other side because you do have the oil cooler on the other side. And you just don't want this stuff. I mean, it's hanging there, but you'd rather have it reinforced because you don't want this stuff hanging down. So, all right. So actually, I only need brackets on this side, the driver's side. The passenger side is actually held up pretty well because it has this lower bracket. So this stuff's not moving too much once the bumper's there. But what I might do is kind of find a piece that could go up and then over just to tie it into here to give it some extra support. So I'll look for something like that tomorrow at Home Depot. However, I do have, this is the bracket. I have the other one. I just need to wait for my drill to charge so I can drill out the other 2 holes, but it's not perfect. It's not pretty by any means, but it works. So you just need 2 of these actually. And so it'll go whoop, just like this. This one will actually be on the inside and they'll line up like that. And you'll have 2 of those, boom. And that's pretty much it for this side. And then like I said, I'm gonna look for a bracket tomorrow to do on that side. But that's gonna do it here to replace your front bumper support if you're an idiot like myself. All right, guys, so there it is. Just got one more bolt to put in, but essentially there it is. So pretty simple, just 2 little aluminum bars just to hold that black bracket. So that's gonna conclude today's video where you screw up a 2016 Dodge Challenger Hellcat, but who cares because it's mine and I'm the one paying for it. And we just wanna go faster, that's all. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Make sure you guys always comment, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram and Snapchat at BamV39, and track is open this weekend if you guys want to come out. Friday night test and tune, Saturday bracket racing with test and tune in between rounds, which I'll most likely be going to Saturdays. I'll go to Fridays because I want to support the track. However, I may not run my car just because the Saturday prep is so much better because of the bracket racing and it's slicks and radials only, whereas Saturday night you get some of the street tires in there. I've said this all before, but I may still make a run or 2 on Friday night just to kind of see what it does, kind of dial it in a little bit, and see if we can go faster on Saturday night than our personal best here. But that's going to do it for today's video, so we'll see you guys on the next one.